I'm Mitali Perkins, and I write books for young readers, mostly middle school, upper elementary age. I loved to read growing up, and I never thought that it would be a career for me. So when I went to college, I studied political science and public policy. I'd grown up in the third world, and then having an education here in the States, I thought I wanted to make a difference for the poor. But I never thought about storytelling being a part of that. I always thought it was some policy making. So I studied all that, but in the meantime, I kept reading all the time, the same children's books I read growing up, and I'm started to realize the power of story in changing people's hearts and minds, and there's nothing like a story that can actually change the direction of the way you're viewing something for the rest of your life. So because I just loved reading so much, I thought, well, maybe I'll give my hand at a story just for fun, and it got published. And so realizing that was one way that I could have an effect on the world was through storytelling. I was born a third daughter. My parents left India, and we came to the States when I was quite young, and I had a fantastic education. But I always felt this sense of why me? Why was I so fortunate when there were so many third daughters growing up in Calcutta or in Bangladesh who weren't? And so I felt a passion to make a difference all along, growing up ever since I was little. So that's why I studied that, and I think it was really helpful. I think people who like to write sometimes go the route of English and the Masters of Fine Arts, and that's fine. But I feel like it broadened my vision to learn about a lot of different things, and my books all have some kind of a justice theme or something to do with making a difference for the poor or those on the edges and the margins of life. I like to talk about writing between cultures, and I think I have a very strong sense of being Bengali because my parents are very traditionally Bengali. So I was raised with the language, with the poetry, with the food, with the traditions inside our house. We had a very traditional house. But there we were in a California suburb, so I had to make sense of that world also. So I became quickly very American, at least on the outside. So I like to say that I'm between cultures because I never really felt like I fit in either place. And that gives you a very unique way of looking at the world when you don't feel like you really belong in either culture. You never really feel at home anywhere. And so the plus side is you get to make yourself at home everywhere quickly. You learn that as a kid. And on the downside, you feel a little bit on the outside, on the margins, wherever you are. But I think that also informs good storytelling when you're feeling like you're not empowered in either world. And that's some of the themes I explore in my writing. I think that if you can survive during those years of middle school and high school, you can survive by, I guess, championing the best of both cultures. It's a huge advantage in this global world when you can become proficient in more than one culture. I find different cultures so fascinating myself, and I feel, and I also feel like there's voices and stories there that capture my imagination, and I feel need to be shared with the wider readers. So they're places that I've lived mostly. I don't think I've ever written about a place that I haven't lived. There was the beginning part of Bamboo People where I wrote a scene set in Yangon or Rangoon, and I had never personally been there. And I found that quite tough to write. I've been to the border and visited the refugee camps. Those were easier because I've been there. I'm very much a five senses person, so whenever I am somewhere, I'm there with all five of my senses, and I'm taking it in, and therefore when I write, it's pretty easy for me to communicate that in my writing because I'm a sensory person. So if I'm interested and intrigued by a theme, then usually what happens is I wait, I read about it, I sit with it, I think about it, and then a character will leap to mind. And as I said before, once the character comes, that character's story takes over. And I know that something's changed in that character's life, and that has to be resolved. So then I have my storyline, and I can just let the character take it from there, and I don't have to worry about putting in a lesson or trying to share my opinion about an issue. I can just do it let the story take over. And I find that really refreshing because then you let go and you don't really have that didactic agenda to teach or to, it becomes a character-centered story, just like every good story.